Hey, what's up guys, it's me thesr back with another video, and recently I uploaded a poll on my Instagram asking you whether I should do a portrait photography tutorials on DSLR or on my smartphone. Most of you selected the mobile photography part, so I thought let me get you clear with the basics of the mobile photography first. So in this video, I'm gonna give you 20 tips about how to be better at mobile photography, and it will be mostly based on the basic stuff. So if you think you are a pro, you can just watch my video and critique me in the comment section down below. So with that being said, let's get started. So the first tip is really basic. You should always clean your mobile lens. So if you have an older device or if you keep your mobile in your pocket daily, which what a normal person do, then your camera lens must be really dirty or smudgy. So one thing that you should consider is whenever you click a photo, just wipe your camera lens before clicking that photo. So the second tip is never ever use your inbuilt camera flash. You can either use your friend's mobile to use flash, or you can use an external device for a flash, but never use your internal mobile camera flash. It will just make the picture little bit darker and yellowish, sometimes more whitish, and it will blow the subject out of proportion and it will just not look good. So the third tip is use the maximum resolution your mobile supports. For example, my mobile support 4:3 ratio with a maximum of 13 megapixel. So I use it to the most extreme resolution. But if your camera supports 12 megapixel or even less or even more, use that. What it will in turn does is it will get you more detail in the picture. Most of the people use 16:9 ratio cropped images, and in turn they get a less detailed photo. But I prefer to use the most max resolution you have in your device. So the fourth tip is really basic and you might already be using this, is touch to focus. So yes guys, you should always use the touch to focus feature in your smartphone. It will get you a perfect pinpoint focus to the subject, and also it will get you a more option than normally on autofocus. So as I was talking about the more options you get after touching the photo, the next tip is adjust the brightness according to subject. When you tap to focus, you will get a sliding bar to adjust your brightness on the subject. So you should always keep the brightness to minimum possible or higher if you need it, but I will recommend you to adjust the brightness to minimum possible so that you don't blow out of proportion the highlights in the image, because you can't regain it. So talking about the brightness, the next tip is you should always turn off your device brightness to the max, so that you don't miss out on the focus, and you can also see where your images is very bright, out of proportion or under the brightness mark you need. So you should always turn up the brightness to the max. If you are using it at the night time, maybe you should put it around 60 to 70%, but if you are shooting outdoors, you should turn your brightness to the max. So the next tip is lighting. You should always consider lighting in your smartphone photography, because your mobile camera lens is really small, the sensor is really small, and it can't get most of the light in the image. It's not like DSLR, but your mobile is really pretty good if you see. So you have to adjust your subject and your mobile according to the lighting conditions you have. The thing you have to understand is the mobile camera is not really good at low lighting. So you should shoot at the places where there is ample amount of light. For example, in this room, it's really dark if I use the natural lighting. So that's why I've turned on the lights in my house. But if you have a natural light source like this, I have a window over here, you should open the window, you should get the ample amount of the light, the maximum amount of light possible in the scene. So the next tip is use grid lines. Grid lines are basically lines that divide your screen into 9 different parts and 4 different cross sections. You can place your subject at any of the cross section in the screen, like this or this, or even in the center of the frame. It will basically give you a unique perspective to the image. I will give some of the images in the description box down below or on the screen right now to show you how you can use the grid lines to your benefit. Placing your subject at any of the cross section is known as rule of thirds. You can use the rule of thirds to get a really good and unique perspective to the image. But you can also break this rule and get really nice photos. For example, the next tip is you can use symmetry. Symmetry is basically having a perfect symmetry around the image to show a subject. For example, this photo. You can see how symmetry just enhances the photo's quality. If this photo was shot in the rule of third, it would not have looked this good. But there are some other photos which look really good when you apply rule of thirds. So you have to understand when you should apply the rule of thirds and when you should apply symmetry. And when talking about the rule of thirds and symmetry, you should also consider something which can really enhance your subject in your image, which are leading lines. For example, the lines on the wall just gives a really nice leading line to the subject, which is me. If I stand over here and I look over here, you can see that the leading lines just leads your eye towards me, and this gives a really nice perspective to the image. So if you use the leading lines to your benefit, you can get a really nice photos, for example this or others. So guys, if you're a beginner mobile photographer and you're very tempted with this rule of thirds, symmetry, leading lines, grid lines, etc., I have a tip for you that you can use and get a really nice photo itself. You can just shoot the subject at the center of the frame like I am right now. What it really does is it will give you a really nice space around the image so that you can edit it after in the post, and you can just edit that photo using the rule of thirds, symmetry and etc. in the post, so that you get a really nice photo, and also you can experiment it in the editing, and you will then understand how to use these rules to your benefit. So the next thing is angle. Angle is basically from which angle, which perspective you shoot your image. For example, right now I am using the angle, it's called eye level. On eye level, you shoot the subject. In this case, I am the subject, and you shoot from my eye level directly. This will give a really nice portrait effect to the image. So if you are a portrait photographer, you should really try to shoot from an eye level. But if you want to get a really unique look, you can just adjust something like a lower angle or even a higher angle. But those things are really tempting and sometimes harder to understand. So you can just shoot at this eye level and you will really get a nice photo out of it. But if you are shooting for the subjects, for example this device, or for example any product, you should really try a bird eye view or shoot from the below. It will get a really nice image for you. You should try different perspectives one by one so that you can learn from it. But if you're just starting, try to shoot from eye level. So the next tip is really beneficial for portrait photographers or subject photography, for example humans. You should always consider to place your subject a little bit away from the background, like I am standing right now. If you place your subject at really close to the wall or even touching the wall, it will not get a really nice background blur. But if you shoot the subject somewhat around here, so then you can see that you will get a really nice background blur. Currently I am using a DSLR, that's why I get a really nice crispy blur. But even if you are using a smartphone, you won't get this amount of blur, but you will get a really nice depth of it. If you want to shoot a really nice background blurry photo, you should consider using portrait mode, which is my next tip. If you have a mobile and you want to shoot a portrait subject, you should definitely try using portrait mode, which is self-explanatory. But if you don't have a portrait mode on your device, you should place the subject a little bit away from the background to get a really nice background blur. So let's consider that you don't want a portrait photo, but you want a landscape photo. There is a really nice feature on your smartphones nowadays. I think each and every smartphone nowadays have this feature called HDR. You should use HDR images for landscape. I really prefer that because in that it will adjust the light according to the highlights, shadows, and then it will combine those photos to get you a really evenly balanced bright image. So the next tip is a little bit higher from the basic. So if you are good with this, all of the tips I just given, leading lines, rule of thirds, portrait mode, landscape, HDR, then you should definitely try this tip. Shoot in manual mode. Man, I can't emphasize enough how good the manual mode on the smartphones nowadays are. You can shoot macro subject from a really close distance, and you can even shoot a landscape from a really slow shutter speed, or you can shoot light trails from this manual mode. So if you want a really detailed video about the manual mode, you can just comment it down below and we'll make a video about that. But for now, I will just say try using all of the other tips first, then go to the manual mode. But if you just want to jump on the manual mode, well, it's your choice, it's your call. But I prefer you should first learn all the tips I said. So the 18th tip is a pro tip, guys. You should always preserve the highlights. What I mean by preserve the highlight is you should see that anywhere in your frame there is not any blown out light part on your image. For example, I am shooting right now. These are my highlights, these are my shadows. So I am seeing that this is not overexposed. If you overexpose this part, I can't edit in post. But if I underexpose this, if this is darker, it's okay, I can edit it in the post. But if this is overexposed, I can't edit it. So you should always consider to get an evenly balanced exposure so that you can preserve your highlights and even if your shadows are dark, you can edit in post. And by edit in post, my next tip is editing. You should really learn editing. But editing is also a pro tip part. So if you know all of the tips, you should learn all of the tips I said. Then with that you should learn editing. But editing nowadays is really simple. You can just edit your exposure, contrast, highlight and shadows. And it is called basic editing. You should learn that from the day one. So you can just preserve your highlight, expose your shadows, and even you can change and color grade, or you can get a really unique editing style. Editing does not matter to many people, but I prefer always use editing in a little bit proportion. So the last and the final tip is be creative. Yes guys, the final tip is you should genuinely be creative. On the screen right now are some of the example of really unique and creative shots. These all were shot from a mobile itself, but if you see, it uses all of the basic things I said in this video, but he was really genuinely creative. If you can see, these are very basic shots, but he knows his angles, his perspective, his basic terms of smartphone photography. Therefore, he can shot from this perspective. So you should be genuinely creative and look out for the new perspectives you can see, and maybe tilt your head a little bit and get a really nice shot. So guys, these were the basics of smartphone photography that you must learn before getting into any kind of portrait, landscape, or even the field of smartphone photography. It is better to know the basic before getting into the pro stuff, so that you can get your image to another level. So guys, this was the video about smartphone photography basics. If you like it, if you think it was really helpful, you can give me a thumbs up, you can comment down, and you can critique my video. And if you have any video ideas, you can comment it down below. And if you're a smartphone pro photographer, you can help me out maybe in the comment section or DM me on Instagram. And I am also doing photography on DSLR nowadays, so you can check those photos and critique me also on Instagram. My handles are in the description box and right over here. And thanks for watching guys. I will see you guys in the next one. See ya. La 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 la. La 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 la. अरे यार